On to, though, some of the other stuff that Donald Trump has done. I have been very impressed by his move to cut funding from all of these NGOs, which sound like they're very sort of positive and doing good social work around the world, but really just seem to be a way for leftists to bring in migrants into the country and to funnel money back to Democrats. Tell us about this.
Well, that's right. A lot of these NGOs sound sort of do-goodery, but and you're never supposed to use U.S. government funding to lobby the government, but do things like community organizing, basically employing otherwise unemployable people to do progressive things. And one thing we'll see if Trump gets into this, too, what I call the democracy industrial complex. And I worked on democracy. I'm a pro-human rights guy, worked on human rights at the State Department under 2 presidents. But things like the National Endowment for Democracy, the International Republican Institute, Voice of America, Radio Free Europe, Radio Liberty, all completely funded by the U.S. government, who originally were supposed to oppose the Soviet Union and now oppose what they call dictatorship. But that also includes the new right. That includes Donald Trump. That includes Viktor Orban. That includes the Prime Minister of Italy and some of the newer leaders who are coming up in Central Europe. And defunding those, basically these entrenched institutional liberal activities that are being funded by taxpayers should be very good just to save money and also to cut these activities out.
So, Christian, I wanted to ask you, what should we in Australia be doing? You know, we don't want tariffs. Australia's a resource-wealthy nation. Should we be following Trump? Should we be getting as close to Trump's policies, you know, like pulling out of the Paris Agreement, abandoning net zero? Or should we be just carrying on our merry way, ignoring Donald Trump's the revolution there?
Well, Trump, I think, is most impressed by a couple of things. First of all, the fact that actually the United States has a slight trade surplus with Australia, I believe. It's pretty narrow, is good. So I don't think he intends to attempt or enact tariffs or anything like that on Australia. I think Trump is also impressed by countries that pay to defend themselves. So he's a lot more impressed by Israel, for example, than Ukraine or Taiwan. You know, with Australia, I hope I'm not going to get in trouble here. I like AUKUS. I like the idea of Australia having nuclear submarines. I'm concerned they'll take so long to get into the ocean that the younger crew members are still a twinkle in the eye of their parents. But the fact that Australia is seen, you know, contributing to the defense of the Pacific against China, I think is helpful. So continuing that with those measures, maybe taking a few shortcuts. Australia also does have pretty good automated underwater vehicles that, frankly, the U.S. Navy ought to copy.
Rita.
Well, we're seeing some incredible polling coming out showing that the Democrats are at the lowest numbers possibly ever. The Republicans are flying. And we've got this talent pool amongst the Republicans. So many young, bright, future presidential candidates. You've got J.D. Vance, Ron DeSantis, Vivek Ramaswamy, Sarah Huckabee Sanders. The list is long. Who is going to be the next future leader of the Democrats? Is it going to be Gavin Newsom? Is there somebody else who's a front runner who could possibly take on the next line of Republicans who seem to be just absolutely going gangbusters?
Yeah. It's hard to tell. They just elected a new technical leader, Martin, who was the head of the Minnesota Democrat Party. Minnesota, of course, the origin of the vice presidential candidate, Tim Walz, known as Tampon Tim, since he wanted to put, in fact, did put tampons in boys' rooms in school. But then you're right. The sort of real leader would be who is the heir apparent, who's the likely nominee 4 years from now. There's a surprising amount of support among Democrats, it seems, for Kamala Harris as a
yes.
Wonderful.
Bring it on.
Gavin Newsom as well with his state on fire, literally. And so the real question to me is whether they can figure out a way to talk to normal Americans, get back to speaking honestly in plain language and talk about economic issues and move away. You know, they're still talking about how they're going to have a delegate who is trans. You know, I'm actually a gay guy, and I really don't like being associated with this alphabet soup or being considered an acronym as opposed to just a person. And I think most Americans, including Americans who would fit in those different groups, just are so sick of the ethnic politics and the identity politics. So if the Democrats, if they can't get away from that, then they're looking at 8 to 12 years in the wilderness.
I think J.D. Vance will make sure of that. Christian, I think we've missed the obvious candidate, which is obviously Karine Jean-Pierre. She'd be the ideal.
Don't forget him about.
Christian, great to chat to you, and we'll chat again soon.